as an advisor to the government, to be able to go and make statements to attack a very powerful, institution. The Senate is very powerful. The Speaker of the Senate is almost number 4 in leadership in this country. So really, how can a PS who is approved by this House go in and castigate a Speaker? So, Mr. Speaker, we're not talking about this issue of diplomacy, issues of opening embassies abroad, issues of bringing these countries all together. Recently, we admitted Somali into the East African community. Why is it wrong if people are able to recognize Somaliland as a nation within a nation? Why is it wrong for the Speaker of this House to be able to meet with dignitaries from that country? So, Mr. Speaker, I think it's about time that we stand firm, defend this House, defend the leadership of this House, and ensure that we can be able to go together as a nation. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we were arguing here about the welfare of our citizens, of our staff. There are things that do not require politics, Mr. Speaker. There are things which are important. Today, I get a phone call from one of our suppliers who assists our constituencies offices, that he could not be able to take his child to the hospital because my office has not paid for things that they supplied for the operations of our county offices. So if we cannot sit here and talk, anytime we raise issues, it's a problem. You hear someone in the executive coming here and castigating this House. I think it's about time that we make a firm determination, and this statement by the distinguished senator from Migori should be one that can be able to canvass all these issues. Not only the issue of Morocco, but also the issue of Somaliland, so that we can put everything to rest. And finally, as I sit, Mr. Speaker, I really would like to request the same Committee on Foreign Relations to summon Abraham Korir Sing'oei to come and explain why he took to social media to castigate the Speaker of this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Essie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support the statement by the Kiambu Senator Karungo on the mauling of the lady who was actually eaten by a hyena in Juja. Mr. Speaker, we've had these cases, and I actually thought the cases are happening in counties that are next to wildlife parks. Unfortunately, this time it's happening in a very active industrial town. Mr. Speaker, we can't be losing our people to disease, floods, hunger, then lose lives to people being eaten by wildlife. It's really sad, Mr. Speaker, and I want to say that swift action should be taken to ensure that these animals are located and taken back to where they belong. I understand very well that could be also happening because of the current pressure we are encountering of, the human beings are growing in numbers, and especially in towns, and encroachment is happening to areas where wildlife would have otherwise been. But you see, the result is very sad, Mr. Speaker. And this is not for the first time. The other time we saw a lion that was actually loitering around areas within town. Mr. Speaker, if we cannot protect ordinary people, then, Mr. Speaker, even yesterday's standoff, I don't see how it makes sense. It's actually an opportunity for we as leaders to also experience what the ordinary people undergo each and every day, Mr. Speaker. So I want to support, and I hope the ministry responsible will be answerable to what Senator Thang'wai has actually raised, not just in Juja. We have these incidences in areas like Athi River, that's Kajiado, and very many others. We must sort out the issue of human-wildlife conflict. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Majayo.
Asante, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, Nataka kuunga mkono hii taarifa ambayo imeletwa na Senator Eddie Oketch kuhusiana na uhusiano katika ubalozi wa nchi ya Morocco, ama utawala ule wa Morocco, ufalme wa Morocco na Kenya. Bwana Spika, ni jambo la muhimu sana kuona kwamba Kenya itakuwa na uhusiano mwema na mataifa mengine, na kulingana na uhusiano huo, kawaida huwa kunakuwa na mazao mengi. Kunakuwa na watu kuweza kufungua njia za watu wetu kupata kazi, kunakuwa na njia zile ambazo pia vile vile watu wetu wanaweza kupata biashara, na uhusiano mwema huo unaleta mambo ya biashara kuendelea katika nchi zetu hizi za Afrika. Hususan jambo hili la uhusiano baina ya Kenya na usultan wa Morocco. Bwana Spika, tumeona ya kwamba mimi nilikuwa katika lile bunge la Pan African Parliament, na katika Pan African Parliament, Bwana Spika, nchi ambayo imetambuliwa na Pan African Parliament ni nchi ile ya inaitwa Western Sahara. Inaitwa Western Sahara. Ile nchi ya Morocco bado haijakuwa na ubalozi ndani ya Kenya, na hivi sasa kuna msikizo fulani ambao unaendelea ya kwamba kunao nia ya kuweza kuwa na uhusiano mwema na serikali ile ya Morocco pia. Hilo ni jambo zuri ambalo tunaliweza kuliunga mkono. Lakini Bwana Spika, ikiwa kutakuwa na uhusiano kama huo, ni lazima iwe baina, ifanywe wazi kabisa, ili kila mtu aweze kujua kunaendelea nini baina ya majadiliano yanayoendelea katika Kenya na yanayoendelea katika serikali ya Morocco. Lakini hivi juzi tunaona kwamba kumekuwa na majibishiano ambayo yamekuwa hayafai. Hili bunge la Senate liko na uwezo wa kujadiliana jambo lolote ambalo linaendelea ndani ya Kenya, na hili bunge la Senate likiwa linaongozwa na Speaker. Bwana Speaker, mimi nataka kusema ya kwamba uwezo huo unaweza kuengage ama unaweza kujadiliana. Katika kujadiliana huku unaweza kwenda katika nyanja zozote za biashara, za kazi, za matumizi, za madaktari, za kila kitu, ili kuweza kusaidia nchi hii. Hilo ndio jukumu lako kubwa ambalo liko hapa. Tukiangalia katika katiba pia tunaona ya kwamba hili bunge hauwezi kulishusha hadhi yake. Lakini juzi tumepata afisa mmoja anafanya kazi katika wizara hii ya mambo ya nje. Huyu anaitwa katibu wa kudumu ambaye ni Singoe. Ni jambo la aibu kuona ya kwamba ofisa sasa wa serikali anaweza kuingilia jambo ambalo linajadiliwa ndani ya bunge, ama anaweza kuingilia speaker ambaye ndio kilele, yeye ndio mkubwa ndani ya bunge la Senate. Na tunaona ni madharau, tunaona hii ni heshima ambayo anajaribu kushukisha heshima ya bunge la Senate chini, ambao sio kawaida. Wewe ukiwa unafanya kazi ndani ya serikali, hauwezi ukaingilia chochote ndani ya bunge la Senate. Kwa hivyo, Bwana Spika, tunaona haya ni matusi na ni madharau. Haswa kwa mimi, Bwana Spika, itakuwa jambo la kusikitisha sana kuona kama kutakuwa na madharau kama haya. Sisi kama watu wa Pwani hatutakubali hata kidogo kuona ya kwamba sio kwamba wewe uko pale peke yake, lakini mtu yoyote ambaye anaketi katika kiti cha uspika wa Senate ni lazima aheshimiwe. Hivi sasa ikiwa jambo kama hilo limetendeka, ni muhimu ile kamati husika katika Senate kuweza kumuita huyo ofisa aje ndani ya hili bunge la Senate na aweze kutueleza ni kwa sababu gani alikuwa anajibishiana na speaker. Tena unaenda kwa Twitter, hiyo ni madharau ya namna gani? Kwa hiyo Hii hata nakubaliana na vile ndugu yangu Aaron Cheriot anasema. Cheptum chairman wangu hajalala. Cheptum ni mtu yuko sawa sawa kabisa na ni wakili mkubwa. Yeye hajasinzia, yuko sawa sawa kabisa, lakini vile tu kwamba hajaongea ya kwamba kama Sing'oei alifanya makosa sana.
What is the point of order, Senator Cheptum? What is the point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I am keenly listening to the Senator of Kilifi. Is it in order for the majority leader to claim?
The majority leader is not on record.
The majority leader claiming that I'm not listening. Mr. Speaker, you heard him saying so.
Senator Cheptumo.
Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the House that I'm keenly following the proceedings of the House, and my committee, Mr. Speaker, is fully aware of what the PS was trying to demean this House. And Mr. Speaker, I will also speak at my right time on that particular issue. So majority leader, it's unfair and procedural for you to say that. Mr.
Thank
Speaker,
you, Senator Cheptumo. Senator Mazayo, conclude, please, so that we close this.
Asante Bwana Spika. Kama ndugu yangu Cheptumo anatuhakikishia yeye hayuko usingizini, kama anavyosema Aaron Cheriot, kiongozi walio wengi, sisi nataka tuchukue hiyo hatua ya kwamba huyu ofisa ambaye ni ofisa wa chini sana katika hii wizara ya mambo ya nje aitwe hapa ili tuweze kumhoji, na sisi kama watu wa Pwani hatutakubali hata kidogo. Hatutakubali hata kidogo hadhi ya hii Senate iregeshwe chini. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue raised by the Senator of Migori is very important. Mr. Speaker, it must occur to us that Morocco, a country in Africa, is the 5th largest economy in Africa. And Kenya and Ethiopia were in position 6. To sit and refuse to have and fail to have formal relationship with Africa's 5th biggest economy is to lose the obvious, Mr. Speaker. I therefore would like to urge the respective committee, would like to urge the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, remembering that my good friend, Dr. Sing'oei, who people are not very happy, who senators are not very happy with this morning, to be up to the task so that we move towards formalizing this relationship. The second point, Mr. Speaker, I would like to make is that the East African community has now expanded and invited Somalia into the community. Having done so, it means that some of the good things of Somalia are now on board, but also the headaches that Somalia has. Somaliland, dear colleagues, senators, Somaliland is a headache to the Republic of Somalia. So what, to my understanding, prompted the PS to respond in the manner he did, Mr. Speaker, to my understanding, is the possibility, because we have not talked to him, that Somalia might have raised a formal complaint about the engagement that we were perceived to have made with Somaliland, which is a problem to the country. Mr. Speaker, as I say this, don't let it be lost to this House that even Morocco has a similar challenge in the name of Western Sahara. The moment we shall engage with Morocco, we will have to devise means on how we can deal with the headache of Western Sahara. Mr. Speaker, you and I have the unique opportunity, which we had, that we served in the Ministry of East African Community. And Mr. Speaker, let's not personalize this. After you pulled down your tweet, and after Sing'oei had made the comments he made, I have taken time to listen to what Sing'oei was saying. Sing'oei did not attack the Senate. Sing'oei did not attack the Speaker. Sing'oei spoke to the mandate of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Sing'oei emphasized the oversight role of Parliament on matters of international relationship. So why a leader, in fact, a house of sober leaders like this one, would want to belabor and blow that clarification from Sing'oei out of proportion, it beats my logic. What are we fighting Sing'oei for? Mr. Speaker, with your permission. What are we fighting Sing'oei for? I'm referring. What are we fighting him for? Let's call a spade a spade. Mr. Speaker, Sing'oei said the following things. He says, foreign policy of the Republic is the function of the national government. That is a fact. He said, Parliament's role in foreign policy is oversight on exercise of foreign relationship by national government. That is a fact. He said, it is Kenya's established and unchanging policy to remain consistent with the African Union on the matter of the Federation of the Republic of Somalia. What's wrong with that? Mr. Speaker, are we saying this Parliament want to push an agenda that is contrary to the position of the African Union on Somalia? We would be missing it. And finally, Mr. Speaker, Sing'oei said Somaliland, a region within the Federal Republic of Somalia, has a liaison office for commercial purposes in Nairobi. That means he was acknowledging that Somaliland is not a pariah. It already has been given an opportunity to deal with Kenya. I appeal to colleagues that we don't try to kill a fly with a sledgehammer. This is a non-issue. Let the PS of Foreign Affairs enjoy his freedom of thought, freedom of expression. Some of us have had to pay high prices for freedom of expression. Let us not use Parliament to intimidate civil servants. If we want to deal with foreign affairs, there is a substantive minister who we can call here instead of focusing on his civil servant who he can manage himself. Mr. Speaker, sir, Morocco, which is the issue that the member from Migori has raised here, is so important that they are also the giants of soccer in Africa. They have also produced some of the top athletes in this country. Those of us who have had an opportunity to go to Morocco, we know that there's so much we can learn, so much we can partner, so much we can benefit from by relating to Morocco formally. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I congratulate the Senator of Migori.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. We wish to comment on the two statements. One statement by Senator Eddy and a statement by Senator Mudigi. Let me start with the statement by Senator Mudigi on centralized procurement of school learning material. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very crucial statement because there are challenges right now, Mr. Speaker, in terms of the change of policy to centrally procure learning material, particularly books, to schools. I have received complaints from head teachers in my county that some schools have had to receive books which they don't really need. A school is not doing Islamic studies and is being given books on Islamic studies, really. That's a waste. So, Mr. Speaker, the idea to change the policy to centralized procurement may have been inspired by the need to have a centralized accountability on the procurement process. But that, in a way, it's going to create more problems than the system that was there before. So I think the Committee on Education needs to really reflect on this matter look at all the possibilities, look at all the loopholes, and report to this House so that, if possible, we should actually revert to the system that was there before, which was that every school could handle procurement of its learning material. Mr. Speaker, let me also comment on the issue of establishment of an embassy in Morocco. Mr. Speaker, this issue of having an embassy in Morocco is long overdue. And there is no justification at all for Kenya government not to have an embassy in Morocco. Because all the leading economies in Africa, they all have embassies in Morocco. Start with Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Algeria. They all have embassies in Morocco because Morocco is a big economy and Morocco is a flourishing economy, which this country really needs to benefit from having a diplomatic engagement with Morocco. So there is no justification not to have, but I'm aware, Mr. Speaker, the government is trying to quietly establish an office in Morocco. But Mr. Speaker, as a standard, I think it's important for that process to be processed through Parliament so that Parliament gives an approval for the establishment of embassies in such strategic countries. Mr. Speaker, coming to the issue of the PS for Foreign Affairs, I have had Senator Galuale trying to defend the PS. I think there is no justification in what he did. When we have high-ranking government officials resorting to exchanging on social media, then there is a problem. And Mr. Speaker, the PS would easily have taken his phone and called you. Instead of now going to respond to you on social media. That is unacceptable, and we are seeing this trend emerge in this current government. We have seen the behavior of the CS Moses Kuria on social media and others. I mean, there should be a better way of communicating within government. So there is no justification in what the PS did. And Mr. Speaker, Parliament plays a big role in foreign policy implementation. After all the treaties that we engage in as a country are ratified by this House. So when the PS gives an impression that the Parliament and Senate has no role in engaging on diplomatic mission, Mr. Speaker, that is misconduct. And if it was another country, that PS would be at home by now, Mr. Speaker. You will be at home, I'm telling you. If this thing happened during President Moi's time, by 1 o'clock news, we would hear that the PS has been sacked. So this crippling indiscipline in government, Mr. Speaker, I think is something that we need to deal with as a House, and there is no justification in what the PS did. But Mr. Speaker, this is a problem of giving responsibility to people who have no civil service experience. They will always do things in this manner. Serious ministries like Foreign Affairs require serious, experienced civil servants who are also diplomats, Mr. Speaker. So Mr. Speaker, I want to
What is your point of order, Senator Boni?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order, rising on standing order number 105, for the member to impute improper motives on our civil servants when he knows that Abraham Singoe, doctor, was not only vetted for by the National Assembly, but that this is a distinguished lawyer with a doctorate in law. And Mr. Speaker,
Senator Boni, what is your point of order?
The point of order is
information. Very good information you're giving. It's not a point of order. So choose. Are you on a point of information or a point of order?
Yes,
Are you informing Senator Osotsi of the resume of the PS, or are you calling to order the honorable senator who was speaking?
It's a thin line, Mr.
You
Speaker.
can't do both.
Mr. Speaker, it's a thin line. Under 105...
The line can never be thin, Senator.
Under our standing orders, Mr. Speaker, with due respect, 105 expects that members should be guided by the factuality of what they are speaking to.
Senator Boni, that's why I'm asking you.
Yes.
Are you on a point of order or you are on a point of information? Just pick one and proceed.
A point of order.
Okay. What
Yes.
is this that is out of order?
He's misleading the House that Dr. Abraham Singoe is not competent enough to be our principal secretary, when in fact the education Ibrahim has, the district senator from Iga can only dream about it. He doesn't even have 20% of that. We need to appreciate the quality of professionalism in our government of Kenya Kwanza, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Osotsi, proceed
Mr.
to
Speaker,
conclude.
Boni Khalwale is just wasting my time. And I want to tell Boni Khalwale that I am also learned. I have a degree in computer science. I have a master's degree in computer science. I have an MBA. I have more degrees than Boni Khalwale. So don't say that I can only dream of...
Honorable senators, honorable senators, at this rate I may require every one of you. Order, Senator Boni. Kindly, Senator Osotsi, abandon that line of argument and proceed to prosecute your contribution and conclude, please.
Yeah.
Senator Boni, we are veering off the subject matter. Kindly proceed to...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think the PS for Foreign Affairs deserves to apologize to you as a Speaker of this House and to this House. Because in the ranking order, Mr. Speaker, you are too senior. In fact, I would have forgiven the Ministry of Foreign Affairs if maybe that statement was written by Prime Cabinet Secretary and the CS for Foreign Affairs. That is your level, Mr. Speaker, but not a junior officer in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We deserve an apology. You deserve an apology. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Majority Leader Cheriot.
Mr. Speaker, this is a very interesting morning. But first, the statement by Senator Mundigi deserves our attention. And it deserves the attention of the Education Committee because this is a policy position that government has played ping pong quite a number of occasions on. You remember, Mr. Speaker, that previously, I think around 2015, there was a directive that in the interest of saving taxpayers' money and that school teachers were actually buying school books at exaggerated amounts. Therefore, the policy shifted to centralized procurement system where they'd procure here at the national government and send them to the various schools. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, that policy appeared to be working initially. But a few years down the line, Kenya being what it is, and you know that we are a strange people with peculiar habits, very soon you found that schools, even without classrooms, Mr. Speaker, were being loaded with truckloads of books that they did not have, first of all, where to store, and even the teachers to teach some of the subjects, Mr. Speaker. But because it made a lot of sense, and you know Kenyans are never short of lofty words when they want to engineer a procurement project intended just for the sole intention of fleecing taxpayers' money. And therefore, that policy shifted back, I think, about 2018 or 2019, Mr. Speaker, and we saw, again, a decentralization. And teachers were allowed to buy and do this and the other. But after that, again, Mr. Speaker, we were presented with a report. And I remember I was in this house, Mr. Speaker, because this question is not the first time this has been asked. And we were told as a house that the reason why there was need to revert back to the old order, is that you'd find that for the same textbook, one school in Kakamega buys for 500 Kenya shillings. The other school in Vihiga, just next door, buys it for 750 Kenya shillings. And therefore, a somewhat logical argument was presented and it was said, then why not centralize? So, Mr. Speaker, the question should be, what have we learned from this attempted policy of centralizing and decentralizing the purchase of school books and materials, Mr. Speaker? And what measures have we put in place? In fact, and I hope, I think he has since left, I had seen the senator for Muranga, who's our chairperson for education, but nonetheless, I know there are members of that committee who are in the House as we speak, and as members share their comments on this particular question, is that the question they need to ask the ministry when they eventually appear before the House to respond to this question is, what safety nets have they put in place out of the experience that they have learned? Because it is an incontrovertible fact, Mr. Speaker, that there are pros and cons to both centralizing and decentralizing. The only thing that we need to do, Mr. Speaker, if we are a country that learns and makes better decisions out of the experiences we've had, is to ensure that we have put the safety nets to ensure that whatever policy position we take on these items, be it to centralize or to decentralize, is to put in place the mitigation measures to ensure that taxpayers' money is protected. If you put it all procurement to be at Jogoo House, then let the schools request so that you just don't dump them with books that they have not even asked for. There could be alumni that have donated, like I know for a fact in my county, Mr. Speaker, I organize a county-wide alumni day, and one of the things alumni always do is that they donate books in huge numbers to the schools that they went to. So you find that in some of these schools, they may not be needing the books that the national government is sending them to. That's why it will be important to put as one of the safety measures to ensure that the school must first request for those particular books, Mr. Speaker. Second and most important is that if you choose to go the other way, should the ministry choose to let it be handled at the school level, Mr. Speaker, then at least provide a pricing list so that the schools are properly guided and know that there is no institution that is allowed to purchase Kiswahili Mufti, if that book still exists. At least that's the best that I can remember, Mr. Speaker. And no school is allowed to buy that book at above 450 Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. That way we will safeguard taxpayers' money. Otherwise, if we have just an argument, Mr. Speaker, whether to centralize or decentralize, then it means we have learned nothing as a people. And I don't think that is what Kenyans expect us as a house that does oversight. So work unto you, members of Education Committee, when Ministry of Education appears, and please pass those regulations here so that by the time this policy position is taken, we are well guided and hold the ministers to account. Then lastly, Mr. Speaker, is on these diplomatic relations between Kenya and the Kingdom of Morocco. Mr. Speaker, I will not get involved in the debate about what are the relations between Kenya and Morocco and what needs to be improved, what doesn't need to be improved. I know for a fact, Mr. Speaker, that we have enjoyed good diplomatic relations with this country. It is only up until, I think, during the presidential inauguration that Sahrawi Republic, which is a breakaway from the Kingdom of Morocco, appeared and were formally recognized as part of the delegations that caused a tiff between us and them. That matter has since, to the best of my knowledge, been sufficiently addressed, because it's not Kenya alone that finds itself in this challenge between Morocco and Sahrawi. The rest of all countries of the world, because these people, each time when countries break away from the other, they provide a diplomatic challenge to established nations. Because on many accounts, when you want to disassociate, there are challenges with it. When you want to associate with them, therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'll leave it to the experts of foreign affairs to come and respond to the question by my friend Senator Eddie Oketch. But I hold a different view from colleagues who are trying to demean the work of Dr. Sing'oei. While I may not agree with him entirely in the process with which he used to make a correction to a tweet that emanated from your office, Mr. Speaker, if I were in Dr. Sing'oei's position, the prudent thing to do, Mr. Speaker, would have been to reach out to your office and let you actually make the correction, because I know what he was trying to do is to give, of course, a formal complaint or informal may have reached him and said, is this the actual position of the government of Kenya? Because let's face it, Mr. Speaker, the same way people are saying your office is high ranking in this republic, that's true. That's why when you send out a tweet, other countries are bound to question and say, is this the official government position of Kenya? Therefore, it was within his place to try and put the proper position, Mr. Speaker, on this particular issue. The mode which he may have chosen to execute it is what we can debate here. But I can tell you, Senator Godfrey Osotsi, my good friend, you cannot hold a candle to the PS Abraham Singoe on matters foreign relation. That gentleman has earned his space. Many of our colleagues, including some that have served in this house with him, actually came up from his work from both foreign affairs and human rights, especially on marginalized communities. Celebrated, published, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, let us desist from this habit of being too critical of people. Surely, of all the work that Abraham Singoe has done, trying to restore Kenya's foreign relations that were dwindling at the time of the exit of the past regime, Mr. Speaker, to a point where now we are respected. People want to know Kenya's position on every matter. If we didn't matter as a country, then Somaliland will never have bothered to know or to confirm what is our actual position on this particular issue. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I hold the view that even as we hold to account the executive, let us do it with dignity. Let us do it with decorum. You know, a trend is being set in this house, Mr. Speaker, where sometimes because we have a premium platform, many of us tend to speak on issues without necessarily sometimes doing due diligence on a particular item. I saw, Mr. Speaker, for example, early this week, members speak on the issue of privatization and say, oh, I am opposed to this or the other. I hold the view, Mr. Speaker, that particular notice is a notice of public participation. You're being invited to give your views on policy position that the government wants to take. We are here as a house debating and saying we cannot even pay salaries to our staff because we are in a difficult financial position. When the government tries to come up with policies that will free up the fiscal space, we are again the first ones to oppose and say, no, that one is not possible. This one cannot be done. I think you cannot eat your cake and have it. We've got to be sincere and appreciate that as a country, we have found ourselves in a very unique situation in terms of our fiscal space. We can hold debate this way or the other and say, in fact, Mr. Speaker, I would be more encouraged if as colleagues senators, we will take a lead role, for example, in this conversation on privatization. Senator Boni Halwale and, for example, those that come from the sugar growing areas, we want to hear your views on this particular matter because it is not sustainable, for example, for government, Mr. Speaker, to each year be pumping 500 million Kenya shillings to sugar mills that, first of all, half the year do not function, they don't pay farmers, they consume taxpayers' money. Let us inform this particular debate and say, for example, I'd wish and appreciate and say, if there's a private sugar mill in my factory, I'd wish that concession fee, instead of being paid to the national government because they don't need it, let it be paid to the resident county government. It can be used at least to show up, pay for medical services and whatever functions and funds that people need. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage colleagues that many other times when we take positions on the floor of this house, let it be better informed than at least the people that we represent. Because people cannot look at you, Senator Sifuna, and say, of all of us here in Nairobi, you are the best representatives in the Senate. Then you come to the House and want to speak also like the average Nairobian who is expecting on you to have better information than them. We have to do better as a people and as a leadership. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to support these particular two statements and hope that our colleagues will get justice for the statements that they have sought and answers that are sufficient for the people that they represent. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddy.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think that there are two statements that have been put across here by esteemed senators that I think that are quite solemn in the sense that they involve harassment and deaths of very important people, women in our society. One of them by Senator Mutinda, who sought to, get some comment of action from the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs of a lady who was harassed by matatu by matatu operators on Thika Road, Mr. Speaker. These are scenes that we have seen a number of times, and sometimes we take them for granted and almost like a norm, where women are harassed in places, in public places, for different reasons, Mr. Speaker. And I think that is something that as a country we must start, working hard to put it behind our backs. And this is something that is very serious that needs to be dealt with as a country, Mr. Speaker. And in the same manner, the senator for Kiambu talked about the Ayena attack, and unfortunately, again, it was attack on a woman. And this is telling us some trend, Mr. Speaker, that it seems like women in their strivings every day to be able to feed families, find themselves in serious troubles. Today in the morning, Mr. Speaker, I just got news from Migori County that women who are affected by the effect of El Nino, who are trying to, get themselves to the other side of Aneko. This is on one of the rivers that floods during such a time, had their boats capsized. And 4 of them died this morning, Mr. Speaker, together with a gentleman who was trying to help them cross with the boat. And these deaths, as I even sent condolences to the lady that Thangwa talked about, and also the women in Migori County, Mr. Speaker, this exposes our nation's, structure on being able to support women and be able to make sure that our women are safe in their modes of striving for economic empowerment and economic activities. Some of our households, in the nature of how we find ourselves as a continent, and mostly in Kenya, you find that our household economics are mostly supported by women, and mostly women come out very strongly to look for ways of striving every day, ways of feeding our families, and it's indeed sad if we cannot be able to secure their lives in whichever form, be it attack from hyenas or be it attack from rogue matatu drivers and rogue matatu operators, or sometimes be it gaps in terms of just having proper infrastructure that can be able to help them be able to do their activities, whether in agriculture or otherwise, in a proper way. And that said, Mr. Speaker, it's the mantra that you do not sometimes quote yourself or talk about your own statement. And my intention is not to talk about my statement on Moroccan embassy, because I think that I will engage with the committee appropriately as required. But I think that is extremely important, Mr. Speaker, that I add my voice on this issue of the PS, Sing'oei, because, Mr. Speaker, we are losing the script. And the script was very simple. Mr. Speaker, you hosted foreign dignitaries, and you hosted them so after they made it to the country. And I think that the intention of the statement is what is most important, because, and I want to urge majority leaders, together with the majority whip, that character assassination is a serious thing in this country. What you say is not consumed only by you, but is consumed by so many Kenyans. This is a serious government official that what he says cannot come as a simple statement of fun on a Twitter page. Because what the CS said, in the eyes of the public and in the eyes of many people, intended to demean the Speaker, and actually intended to suggest that the Speaker of the Senate of Kenya was playing a role that is not his, and was therefore taking the duties of the foreign ministry. This is the fact. And I like the fact that the majority leader did read about the tweet as it was phrased. It wasn't phrased as a normal routine tweet of explaining to you my job, this is what I do. It wanted to be able to escape from responsibility of the fact that before those foreigners, foreign diplomats make it to our country, there is a sincere responsibility in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to know that they're in the country. if they travel all the way from Somaliland to this place without the ministry knowing, without the ministry actually even being able to have them pay a courtesy call to them, then it means that it indicts the ministry for being extremely porous, which is what my friend Senator Ososi was talking about, the issue of competence. How comes that these foreign diplomats made it to our country and then came to pay a courtesy call to our speaker, and then you want to blame the speaker for hosting them? So, you know, it's extremely wrong, and I think that we should not, you know, again, this can work either way, majority leader. You know, the idea of we should not eat our cake and have it is the same way the ministry cannot eat the cake and have it at the same time. I think that the PS sincerely, in good faith, does indeed owe the speaker an apology for actually throwing aspersions that the speaker was trying to take his job. And this apology, perhaps not even to the speaker directly. It should just go back to the same Twitter, because I think that he operates very well on Twitter and engages people on Twitter very well. And just offer apology and clarity that the mistake was done from his side. He wasn't keen on doing his duties. The speaker was doing his duty as should, because we as a house do actually have a role in engaging on foreign resources, diplomatic relations, as are the members of the executive. So it was inappropriate. The message was inappropriate. It meant to demean the speaker. It meant to demean the House, and we must take it as such. And demanding an apology doesn't mean sometimes restrain relationship. It means acknowledging the fact that that kind of aspersion could also affect the effectiveness of our speaker as well as the effectiveness of this House. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and I hope that as we go for recess, we will keep on championing for the place of Senate as well as the Parliament at large in this governance that we have in the country. Thank you so much.
Senator Kathuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, also for giving me this opportunity to make my comment on the statements. Mr. Speaker, I want to touch on the statement on youth and sports, which was presented and led by Senator Ngiruria. I remember very well that, Mr. Speaker, the government, this Kenya Kwanza government, when the ministry was set up, the CS and introduced as a policy that they will support tournaments right from the world level to the national level, so that they can be able to tap the talent from our youth. So, Mr. Speaker, I am not very sure whether this has started, and this statement is very crucial because it is very, very expensive actually to support tournaments. I saw last weekend the majority leader struggling in Kericho to even to raise funds so that he could support that tournament. So if the government is doing it, then this could be the best thing, because, Mr. Speaker, individually, let me assure you that it is not possible. The member for Nairobi County, Senator Sifuna, you cannot be able to support all the clubs in this town. I think there are more than almost 1,000 teams, football teams. So if the government can come in to support these talent right from the world level to the national level, Mr. Speaker, I'm very sure we can be able to get very far as far as...
would you wish to be informed by Senator?
Because I'm not sure whether whatever I send needs more information. I just sent it's approximately 1,000 clubs, maybe in this city, Nairobi City County. You have the figures? Okay, inform me the exact figure. But not on any other matter, maybe on that figure only.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know why the Senator for Meru is scared about the information that I'm carrying. Actually, I wanted to agree with him in terms of the burden on sporting associations in the counties. The information I wanted to give him is that I am bringing an amendment to the Sports Act so that we can set aside 1% of the revenues of each county to support registered sports associations in the counties. That's the information I wanted to pass.
To support you in this floor to raise it to 2%, at least like the way NGCDF does. 2% goes to sports, and then 2% to environment. We might even propose 5% should go to environment so that we can fight climate change in the counties. So Mr. Speaker, the other comment I want to make is about the books. Mr. Speaker, I've been an MP for 2 terms in the constituency, and the teachers, the principals have been complaining about the textbooks. The publishers, because they get contracts for the Ministry of the Education directly, they dump books to those schools even without knowing whether they require them or the need for those books in the school. So, Mr. Speaker, if the statement by Senator Mudigi, it needs a lot of attention, because the schools should just be given capitation so that they can be able to buy what is necessary and what they need at that particular time. Mr. Speaker, the other issue about the Morocco embassy and what happened, because this matter has really been on this floor since yesterday, Mr. Speaker, and your office has been mentioned severally by members in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, with a lot of humility, I would request the committee dealing with this matter to bring a statement or a report, because they can be able to engage the Minister of Foreign Affairs, so that also, Mr. Speaker, we can protect your image as our Speaker. You know, you are the President of the Senate. So you can be able to protect your image, to protect the office that you hold, and also to put the matter straight, so that when you are chairing this session, your name does not appear so much on this floor, Mr. Speaker. So I wish that matter can rest, and the committee concerned to come up with just a small report to put the facts clear. But, Mr. Speaker, maybe communication is what the PS did in a not a good manner. If we was to collect you that this is the position of the government and the AU and the UN, maybe he couldn't have done it formally to you, or to call you or to visit your office, so that he could clarify the exact position. But responding to you on Twitter was not very, very good, Mr. Speaker. So I really want to thank you also for your magnanimity this morning. You have given us a lot of airtime as we come close to this end of this session, Mr. Speaker. And I hope even when we open next year, you will continue with the same magnanimity. Because when senators speak on the floor is when they communicate to the voters who brought us to this floor, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, and I wish everyone Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Senator Professor Margaret Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I rise, Mr. Speaker, to support the statement by Senator Tapida Mutinda on the assault of a female passenger by a matatu conductor. Mr. Speaker, when you watch the clip that Senator Mutinda has referred to, it is very worrying where our society is going. You are a passenger, you know your destination and you have given your destination. The matatu passes your destination, you ask why you are being passed, you are removed and you are slapped. It makes no sense. It just makes you wonder whether the tout was really in his normal sense, or he was drunk, intoxicated, or what was wrong. Because it tells a lot about the society. Mr. Speaker, as the committee looks at that statement, I think it is good for the committee to relook at how our transport system is. Where are the Michuki rules? When Michuki established rules on how to operate the matatu sector, we saw uniforms for the first time. My hope is that with this committee, they should actually go check, interview the touts, and see how they look like. Do we still have uniforms? Are people sitting in a very respected manner? Because when the Michuki rules came, people sat in a very respectful manner, because women have had a raw deal in this public transport, Mr. Speaker. They have had opportunities that somebody comes and literally sits on you, and we have had those complaints. People hold people inappropriately in the same matatus. We hope that overloading will come to an end. So we want this statement, Mr. Speaker, to go beyond the Thika incident. Let them interview and let them check whether there is any behavior that is unbecoming even currently. I hope the committee can go to a station and walk incognito into matatus, even before they identify themselves. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying this because I think we should be reaching a level where our matatu touts have their names on the uniform so that we know who they are. In fact, beyond the name and the telephone number, we need to be able to identify them. Because the reason they're behaving the way they're behaving is because they think nobody sees them. Thank God for young people who take videos these days. Any incident that takes place, they take a video. And I want to thank the people who helped this lady, because this one did not go unhelped. At least people ran after this man and were able to nab him. I thank those ones. And I thank the one who did the video. But it is making Kenyans look like watchmen all over. We are busy taking videos everywhere because of our security, but that is a very good thing that's happening, that's happening amongst our people. But can we label these people? Can we have them work like waiters? Because you go to an hotel in this country, because we are a service nation, we do a lot of hotel keeping, and it's very nice when you know the name of the waiter, you know the number of the name of the waiter, just the way we have our police and you know the number of a policeman. And you can report a policeman because you know the number. If they misbehave, you just take the number and give that number and they can be identified. The problem with our touts is that nobody can identify them. And because nobody can identify them, they think they can actually get away with anything until they are napped like this one was napped. But there are so many that are taking place across the country and nobody is able to identify them. I think there is a need for this committee to go deeper and actually help us regulate the sector. We want to call on the Minister of Roads currently to bring back the Mijugi rules. We want the Minister to be able to improve on those rules and ensure that our traveling is smooth. Because currently we are telling ourselves, because of climate change, we need to reduce on our private vehicles, and all of us should be able to enter a matatu and take off with a matatu. We should be able to use any transport, but we must identify who is carrying you. We must be able to identify these touts. We must be able to identify your driver so that you know that this is the driver, you know the name, and you can actually pick the telephone number just in case anything happens to you. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Senator Mutinda for bringing out this issue. All of us were terrified when we saw the incident, but we thank the people, the public, that went after this culprit and were able to arrest him. We really must honor, respect that we have people in this country that still care, because it would have been a disaster if nobody cared for that lady at that point. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this statement, and I ask the committee to go beyond the statement and actually investigate if our sector is still regulated. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time.
Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to comment on the statement by Senator of Migori on the issue of Morocco. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the statement by Senator Eddy, he is seeking to know the